Hey, what's up everybody? Happy E3 and welcome to today's video. I thought it'd be a cool idea to make some E3 predictions. This is really the last time we have to speculate about Halo Infinite, so let's just jump right into it. So number 5 prediction, an open world mode. This is going to be a game mode where you can explore and unlock new portions of the Halo ring. I think this game mode will be shown off during E3, as well as the wildlife on the Halo ring. However, unlike Halo 3 ODST, the main story missions won't be accessible from the open world mode. This would be strictly open world, side missions, exploration, fun co-op experience, just new areas to unlock and push enemy factions out of these areas and like lock them down for the UNSC. I could maybe see the player being able to launch campaign missions from the outposts, but that's just kind of my idea on it. I think a key to this open world mode will be avoiding the wide as a lake, deep as a puddle experience that we've seen in certain open world games. Anthem. I'm sorry, got some in my throat. So my number 4 prediction is the Flood. I think the Flood will finally return in Halo Infinite. I think the trailer and gameplay demo we see at E3 will end with the Flood attacking the player or something that will tease the Flood. Along with this, I think it would be exciting for the player to push out the Flood from certain areas of the Halo and to fight the infected wildlife. So just imagine seeing like this beautiful Halo ring and all these like cool like space reindeers and all this cool wildlife and stuff, and then slowly see the Flood just like infect these areas and actually like infect the wildlife, which we've never really seen before. It's always been like humans and aliens that get infected. So that's what I want to see. Hashtag Flood Rhinos. Get some hashtag Flood Rhinos in the chat. So number 3, enhanced mobility will return, but not in the way that you think. So something I've noticed since Halo 5's debacle is 343's new sense to listen to the community about things. The Spartan abilities, in my opinion, they sounded good on paper, but they weren't executed well. I think the enhanced mobility will come into play when it comes to traversing the open world. So imagine you get to a cliff edge and you want to explore what's below. I think the player will be able to like leap off certain cliff edges and like jetpack down to the ground or thruster down, and it'll allow the player to land. It'll be kind of like a cinematic thing, but you'll kind of have control to some degree. And I think that this will also serve as a way for the game to load new areas without having to go into loading screens. So I think that would be a really smart way to incorporate that. Obviously, there has to be like some form of loading screen. You know, it's almost impossible not to have loading screens nowadays, but maybe one day. So my number two prediction is weapon customization and light RPG elements. So the light RPG elements, they're basically already confirmed. We saw 343 was hiring game developers with experience in working on RPG games, and I think these elements will be similar to Halo 4, where you could add a perk to your multiplayer character that made your shields recharge faster. You could take less damage from explosives, things like that. But unlike Halo 4, I don't think it'll be in the multiplayer. I think it'll be restricted to just the campaign and the open world mode. As far as the weapon customization, I think you'll be able to customize your own unique weapons for the open world mode, but not campaign missions. So campaign missions, you'll start with whatever weapon you're supposed to start with. But I think this will be similar to all the different Halo 5 variants of weapons we saw. So imagine being able to change the scope of your gun or the class, like a more powerful rocket launcher that has like 3 rockets instead of 2. You could add a perk that has less recoil. Stuff like this, I think would be a fun way to just kind of have your own unique spin, like have your own, your own weapon with your own weapon skin, that you can start your free roam experience. It could be anything. If you want to start the free roam mode off with a rocket launcher and a sword, like have at it. I think more options equal more fun, and my hope is that 343 is starting to realize this. So my number one prediction for Halo Infinite, I would put money on this. This is my number 1 prediction, is that it will have campaign DLC, which will conclude the story and be rolled out 2 years after the game launches, and that the Banished will come to Zeta Halo in one of these campaign arcs. So I would definitely put money on the campaign DLC, maybe not the Banished, but so I could see Halo Infinite having a base campaign of about 6 to 8 hours, and that's aside from the open world mode experience, that's just the campaign, and then having 2 or 3 DLC arcs, each lasting around 4 to 5 hours. Now before we get into the Banished, let's talk about why I think 343 will do this. Well, for starters, they've been leaning towards campaign DLC ever since Halo 4. Halo 4 had soft campaign DLC in the form of Spartan Ops, which was rolled out in seasons and designed to expand the story. Problem was, it didn't focus on the Chief, and the missions were essentially running around multiplayer maps and shooting waves of enemies. It wasn't boring if you were with your friends, but it wasn't really a story. It had cutscenes that were a story, and they were cool cutscenes, but I don't know. I didn't really care about the characters because I didn't know who they were. So, anyways, Halo 5's story was a huge letdown, and 343 they crammed too much into its campaign. Blue Team showed up out of nowhere. Julie Boy, he died in the first mission, and basically everything Halo 4 set up was thrown away because 343 they had to cram everything into the story that they wanted. If they, I think if they had more time, more missions, campaign DLC, they could have expanded the story out. And Blue Team, they could have just slowed everything down a little bit. It was a little bit too fast paced in my opinion. So I think that the writing obviously was bad, but there were other limitations as well. So I think just a longer story, having that freedom, you can have a better story. And I think that's another reason why they're going to add campaign DLC. Aside from the money, obviously they want to make money. I think campaign DLC would be, a good way for them to tell a satisfying story, not have to rush, make money. And I think that 343 knows this, and that's why they'll do it. So lastly, Halo Wars 2 had straight up campaign DLC. And aside from people feeling tricked about 343 forgetting to tell everyone that the season pass would not include the campaign DLC, the missions were well received and I think well worth the price. So I think that it was a little questionable for them to not just announce this. I think that's what people were most upset about, was it's like, well, why didn't you just tell us? Why didn't you just say like, oh, it won't be in the season pass? And I don't know. Apparently they did, but I don't think they conveyed it loud enough if they did, because I didn't hear anything about it. But anyways, so now let's talk about the Banished. So I think the Banished will come to Halo Infinite. I plan to do a full video on why 343 will do this, but for now let's just talk about how the Banished will. Now I know what you're probably thinking, but Nietzsche, the Banished are on the Ark, how would they even get to the Halo? Well, it's actually simpler than you might think. The Banished could simply open a portal from the Ark to the Halo and then just come through. Simple as that. Or the Ark, it could have all sorts of abilities we don't know about. It could even have a function where it recalls the Halo back to the Ark. We don't know. The point is, if 343 wants the Banished to come to Halo Infinite, they could most definitely do it. If they don't, that would be a huge missed opportunity, and I would hope that we at least see some of the enemies introduced in Halo Wars 2, like the Goliath, the Brute Grenadiers, the Skitterers, Hunter Captains. I hope we would at least see them and fight against them. I think that it would just be a huge missed opportunity not to see these new vehicles. People have been wanting the Locust for a long time to be added to Halo. I think it's time. I think a Colossi would be cool, just stomping around on a Colossus. All these things, all these new vehicles, they came up with these ideas for this whole, the whole Banished and all these cool new vehicles. Why not utilize them? Why not add them to Halo Infinite, which is supposed to have, infinite, like an infinite number of things to do, an infinite number of factions to fight against, like all these things. So why not add as much as you can to this game and not just push it out there and then move on to the next game? I don't think that's the case. So these are my E3 Halo Infinite predictions. I wanted to get this video out before E3 today because it's the last time we have for this type of speculation. So these are my thoughts. What are yours? Comment down below. I want to hear from everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Happy E3, everybody.